And with that, it is now my honor to present you the Mayor of Duluth, Roger Reiner.
Well, thank you, President Tomanek, for that. I was a little emotional, so I appreciate your kind comments. Good evening, Duluth. It is my honor to be with you here tonight as your 40th mayor, and to have this opportunity to deliver my second State of the City address. Just 11 short months since my first one. Those 11 months have been filled with hard work, challenges, at times sharp critiques, and plenty of lessons learned. You know, there's no onboarding for a new mayor, so it's been a period of learning what you don't know. But it's also been a critical time of building, realigning, and refocusing. I want to begin by sharing a couple thank yous, as Councilor Mayo did, to Ordine East for hosting us tonight. You know, last year we went out to historic Denfeld High School, and this being Duluth, of course, we had to go east this year. And last year we started with a bit of history about that place and space, so an extra special thank you to former Mayor Don Ness for taking a few minutes out of your day job as Executive Director of the Ordine Foundation to share with us a bit about the Ordines. You know, from a foundation to a building downtown to a court at UMD to this school, it's a name we know, but as a community don't know as much about as we could. Thank you as well to the East National Honor Society, who were your greeters and seaters tonight, volunteering to help with this annual event. And of course, to the East High School Sterling Strings for their amazing music that helped welcome us all here this evening. The rendition of the national anthem was fantastic. I was hoping maybe they'd mix a little Coldplay in there, so I'll need to make that request next time. Thank you, Councilor Mayo, for welcoming us to your district. Just a fantastic way to greet us to this part of town and also share your deep knowledge and love for your district. And again, President Tomanek, for your comments tonight, I thought exceptional. And I think of all the things you said, the sharing with the community, how well the council is working and how well administration and council are working together, I think is important for everyone to hear. I also want to recognize all our councilors that are here tonight, other elected officials, and of course our city staff. We also have business, civic, and faith community leaders here. You know, we are all partners in this big, small town, and we work together to make Duluth a better place for all. And I want to thank each resident who has taken time to join us here tonight, whether in person, here in the auditorium, or joining us online via the live stream. It is actually you that make Duluth the historic, unique, diverse, inclusive, and welcoming community that we are. To my partner, my family, my friends, your support, your words of encouragement, and your assistance in helping me stay the person doing the thing instead of becoming the thing is instrumental. And I thank you. You know, I hear all the time that mayor must be a hard job. Don, you have, I think, your own opinion, but my response, you have no idea. People think the city is responsible for everything that happens in Duluth. And they think the mayor knows every single thing that happens at City Hall. And they think as mayor, you personally make every single decision at City Hall. And I'm also just going to say it, in Duluth, we like to make everything political, even though most things at the local level really aren't. Last year, I was committed to focusing on 5 big issues. They were growing our commercial tax base, housing across all income levels, streets and utilities, downtown Duluth, and affordable property taxes. And in 2024, we accomplished a lot, and I want to share with you just a few of those things. Today, we have a multi-million-dollar expansion underway at the Sofadale plant in West Duluth, a $200 million investment that will triple their current workforce, as well as ensure the life of that facility for decades to come. The new Amazon distribution center is currently hiring and set to open soon. Those projects, along with Second Harvest, highlight that our far west neighborhoods are actually really our growth corridor, a place where we have the land for business and residential construction and neighborhoods that welcome it. It's also where rail, freeway, and water all come together, as well as an easy connection over the hill to the airport. We know that post-pandemic, multimodal, having all those transportation connections is a competitive advantage. We broke ground on the Incline Village and the Lakeview 333 projects. When complete, the Incline Village will be an entire new Duluth neighborhood with some 1,300 market-rate apartments, condos, retail, as well as public outdoor amenities. We repaired over 19 miles of streets in 2024 and are keeping pace in 2025 with that roughly 15 miles a year, every year, that I told you about last year, and that we need to do in order to refresh our street system every 30 years. We kicked butt on filling potholes. And something I'm ridiculously excited about, we did crack sealing for the first time in several years. It's not just about refreshing and rebuilding, it's also about maintenance and preservation. In partnership with downtown stakeholders, we kicked off the Imagine Downtown Duluth process. And as a community, we now understand that the future of downtown is residential. And we're actively moving in that direction. Again, new construction at Lakeview 333 on one end of downtown, combined with the conversion of the Ordine building from commercial to residential at the other. You know, these 2 projects alone will add some 500 new residents to downtown Duluth and meet roughly 1/3 of our goal to have 1,500 folks living downtown and the establishment of an actual downtown residential neighborhood. As Councilor Tomanik noted, we hosted a public safety meeting with DPD, Duluth Fire, and our city attorney. And we passed controversial but a significant set of public safety measures to help give our public safety team something between administrative fines and the extreme of felonies. We might forget, but we peacefully resolved a 2.5-month encampment at Priley Circle. After 15 years, the cozy is finally down, making way for improvement in the historic part of our First Street district. And the Shoppers Ramp has been approved for demolition and will begin soon. We completed securing the Hart, the First Street, and the Tech Village ramps. Inside our organization, we have 7 labor contracts, 7 bargaining unions at City Hall. They all had labor contracts up in 2024. Now, that's a lot for any year, but it's a lot for your first year. We settled 6 of those labor agreements, and negotiations are currently underway with fire so that we can get to 7. Also, as our president noted, we moved tourism marketing out of City Hall and back to a DMO. That's Visit Duluth, where it has historically been and where it belongs. We in City Hall are not tourism experts, and the future of this key industry in Duluth should not be so political. And with a 9-0 vote of our city council, we set a 0% property tax levy for the first time in a decade, after an average of 9% year-over-year property tax increases. A significant step towards a tax burden for our residents and our businesses that they can both afford and sustain. I'm also proud that we spent last year inside the building committing ourselves to good process, even when that didn't make for good politics. You know, a major first-year task for any new mayor is building their leadership team. And we already have an exceptional one, and many of them are here tonight. And in the next year, I know it's only going to get better. These folks are highly skilled and deeply invested in the city of Duluth as an organization. They are subject matter experts with strong ties to our community, and they have a clear vision for Duluth's future and the dedication needed to get us there. We had 9 new hires at the leadership table, and I'm so incredibly proud to share with you that a year ago, I did not know a single one of them. These are all mayoral appointments, key roles for accomplishing the agenda for which voters elected me. I was not obligated to use any particular process. Simply make recommendations to our city council and ask for their support. But that's not what we did. We didn't hire friends, we didn't reward donors, it wasn't about personal loyalty, and we didn't attempt to check political boxes. Instead, we looked at the needs of the organization. We rewrote job descriptions, and in some cases, Dave, we made new ones where they hadn't existed. We then went to market for the very best candidates we could find, even if that meant some short-term pain and, in some cases, some pretty sharp public criticism, while we took the time necessary to do it. This is the kind of work that goes unnoticed and doesn't make newspaper headlines. Process over politics. A couple other quick leadership notes before I leave this topic. You know, a big lesson for me and one that Dave Montgomery helped me understand in my first year was the distinction between the role of mayor and the role of city administrator. The job of mayor is to provide vision and direction and to be externally facing. The job of the city administrator is to implement that vision by focusing internally and overseeing the day-to-day operations of the city. The mayor isn't actually the most important role in City Hall. It's the city administrator. So we're incredibly fortunate to have had an exceptional new city administrator start just over 2 months ago. Again, welcome aboard, Matt. Administrator Matt Staling has 30 years of experience in local government. He's a licensed attorney with an HR and a labor background and has previously served as a city attorney, and most recently served for a decade as the city administrator in St. Cloud. Matt brings experience with one of our competitors in the regional center market space. One that not just sits in a county, it sits in 3 counties. He knows and understands partnerships and how to be regional. Matt is also an Army veteran who deployed twice during his service. Thank you, Matt, for your service. Now, the feedback so far on Matt, I'm happy to say, has been outstanding. Matt has an upbeat attitude and is a positive outlook person. He is approachable, he listens more than he speaks, and is very collaborative. And Matt, perhaps the best compliment I can give you tonight is that I've heard multiple times now from either former coworkers or people who've talked to your former coworkers, and they are either mad or sad that you left them to join our team. So, now this is also a good opportunity to make clear that despite the rhetoric at the national level, in Duluth, we remain committed in our organization to diversity, equity, sustainability, and resiliency. Last year we had an opening in our human rights officer position, and we took the opportunity to evaluate that role, both the external requirements and also our internal needs, and to develop the role's first ever job description and expand the responsibilities. It is now a key leadership role that covers the required human rights obligations contained in the city charter, but is also a leader for our own important internal work of equity and inclusion. It is also a community resource for our businesses and organizations. Now, it took us a minute to find the right candidate, but Dr. Marcia Liu was worth the wait. She's been with us for just over a month now and is already making a difference. We are thrilled to have her at our leadership table and as a resource for other organizations in our community, especially at this moment in history. We at the City of Duluth continue to support this work, not because it's a political statement, but because we believe diversity is a strength within our community and a strength within the City of Duluth organization. Earlier this year, we also lost an amazing leader in Mindy Granley. Mindy went to the state of Minnesota. She is taking all that she learned in working with the City of Duluth, all that she did for our organization, and as a key team leader, providing that same support to local units of government across the entire state of Minnesota. As you've heard, with every other opportunity, we've spent the last month reviewing and revising that job description, and it still has a few more internal hoops to clear, but we expect it to post sometime in early April. The revised job description has now been expanded and is responsible for leadership around environmental sustainability, energy efficiency, resilient transportation systems, and sustainable utility management. So tonight, I'm just going to put a plug out there. If you know someone who is progressive in their thinking, but also practical in their application, please encourage them to apply once that position is posted. It's also pretty helpful if they're able to seek, obtain, and monitor sizable grants and financial partnerships. People chuckle because they know what that role does. So along with better understanding my role, I also learned that the 5 big issues that you told me about on the campaign trail and were our focus as priorities in year 1 are really 3. Effective and efficient core city services at a tax rate that we can afford and sustain. Housing at all income levels, which includes a focus on a downtown residential neighborhood. And growing our commercial tax base, because commercial taxes pay 2/3 of the tax bill. So when we're not growing commercial, residential makes up the difference, and we need substantially more of it. Now, we did a lot of hard work in 2024, and we are entering 2025 with positive momentum. Councilor Tomanik did a really nice job of highlighting some of that. And we have many accomplishments about which we should rightly be proud. So in 2025, we will have some significant challenges, but we'll also have some opportunities. So let me just highlight a few things. And let's start downtown. So first, we have not made the progress this past year downtown that I wanted to see us make. Cleanliness and public safety remain challenges. Graffiti and litter, property damage. Behaviors that were in ramps have now moved into skywalks. And while most individuals struggling with mental health and substance use issues within our community are nonviolent, that's not true for all. These issues impact everyone: residents, businesses, the individuals, shoppers, our visitors. And addressing them is crucial to realizing the potential of our downtown as a residential hub. Because again, friends, that is the future. A place that was once commercial, then retail, then professional, will next be residential. It just makes the most sense given the post-pandemic trends that we've seen. And we desperately need the housing. We need it to meet our workforce needs, and we need it to meet our population goal of 90,000 by the year 2030. Our lack of growth is not because people don't want to be a part of the Duluth community, it's because they can't find housing. And to be blunt, and I know our county auditor is here with us in the audience, we can't afford for downtown property values to fall off a cliff. Neither can the county, neither can the school district. 2 months ago, a building in downtown Minneapolis that was purchased for $200 million in 2016 sold for $6 million in 2025. That's a 97% property tax or property value decrease in just 9 years. 97%. Public safety and cleanliness are the foundation for a successful downtown. That's why with Chief Sano's leadership, we have added our community service officers in addition to badged officers, in addition to outreach teams, and the Downtown Duluth Clean and Safe team to create a stronger presence in the downtown core. It's also why I supported the City Council's effort, led by Councilor Eric Forsman, to examine the existing skywalk system. I look forward to the external recommendations that we will get back sometime this fall. Because right now we are attempting to monitor, maintain, and activate 3 miles of elevated skywalk, in addition to 30-plus blocks at street level. We are simply overdue to ask really basic questions regarding when, where, and how much. But friends, downtown issues can't just be City of Duluth issues. They are community issues. They are Duluth issues. We do public safety, but we're not the only ones who do public safety. And the city doesn't do health and human services at all. To focus on the root causes of issues we've seen post-pandemic means working closely with partners, closely with St. Louis County, and closely with the state of Minnesota to help address homelessness, mental health, and substance use issues. These aren't challenges that any single entity can solve. It will require the city, the county, state agencies, the business community, civic groups, faith communities, private foundations, and nonprofits. We all have a role to play, and we all have responsibilities. Next, I want to take just a minute to talk about the budget in 2025. In my last State of the City, I told you that we would hold the line on property taxes, and we did. The first 0% levy in a decade. But at that time, I also told you it was unlikely we would be able to do that every year. We, as an organization of 900 people, have all the same cost drivers as everyone else. Materials, wages. And again, 7 labor contracts, all of which were last negotiated during the pandemic. All of which include wage increases. In fact, in 2025, every single city employee will see a wage increase. And they're deserved. But we already spend 82% of our general fund on wages and benefits. So if we take no other actions, in 2025, we would be looking at an 18% property tax increase. And in 2026, another 8%. And that smaller number in 2026 is based on the really large number in 2025. But rising valuation and property taxes have a real impact on everyday Duluthians, so let me be clear tonight. We're not going to do that. We normally begin the budget process in June, but this year we started it last week. I can't tell you tonight what the number will be when we get done with that process, but I can tell you it will not be 24% over the next 2 years. We should also just take a sober look and account for the fact that that math doesn't take into account what is happening at both the state and federal level. With the recent passage of the continuing resolution by Congress, we saw $1.5 million potential funding for critical lift bridge and water treatment plant projects evaporate. And of course, the state of Minnesota just learned that their budget deficit for the next biennium is $1 billion worse. So now $6 billion, which is roughly 10% of the state's general fund. Duluth must be concerned about this because local government aid is our single largest source of revenue. And it accounts for nearly 1/3 of City of Duluth income. So any loss in local government aid will directly translate into reductions in city services. And tonight, if we're honest with ourselves, we know that the actions being taken at the federal level are only going to make the state budget situation worse. And in turn, our budget situation worse. Because federal flows to state and state flows to local. Yet streets and utilities must be repaired. Bridges must be fixed. And we must ensure clean and safe drinking water to our residents and our near neighbors. Now, before I speak about this next topic, I want to take a minute and acknowledge a couple other special guests who are here tonight, the mayors of some of our near neighbor cities. So I know Mayor Boucher from Hermantown was unable to be with us tonight. I think he wisely chose to go to a Wild game instead. But Mayor Chad Ward from Proctor is here, and I know Mayor Suzanne Herstead from Rice Lake was also planning to be in attendance tonight. Thank you for inviting me to your recent State of the Cities event last week, and also for making it a priority to be here this evening. I appreciate you and the partnership that we are all developing. It's good for our communities, and it's good for our region. In 2025, Duluth, you will hear me say regional a lot, because what happens in their communities matters to Duluth. And I know that what happens in Duluth matters to your residents, because if I had $1 for every time somebody said, I don't live in Duluth, but I have an opinion about what happens in Duluth. If I had that money, we wouldn't be worried about the city budget tonight. So, the reality is that 2/3 of St. Louis County's population lives in Duluth, or a community with whom we share a border. 2/3, 135,000 people. We have to focus on better partnerships with our near neighbors and with St. Louis County. And we have to seriously think about regional services. Things like a regional library system. Things like a regional park system. Things like regional economic development, represented by a regional EDA, Economic Development Authority, instead of 4 communities competing against each other. And we already have such a classic example with a regional water treatment system that provides drinking water to all of our residents. You know, most of the systems and services in Duluth were developed in the 1950s and 1960s at a time when Duluth had 110,000 residents. We were the 3rd largest city in the state. And Mayor Ward, our only near neighbor, was the city of Proctor with a population of slightly less than 3,000 people. Things have changed a little in the last 70 years. And we cannot continue to operate based on a model from the 1950s and the 1960s of Duluth being the big city. If we were all to sit down and whiteboard these things today, they would look differently. Now, I know we all have our hands full until the end of the legislative session. That also seems to, dramatically change on a weekly basis. But early this summer, I look forward to an opportunity for the 4 near neighbor mayors to get together and see what might make sense for all of our communities and, frankly, all of our taxpayers. Now, the last big issue I want to talk about tonight, an issue that in 2025 it will be important for us to take tangible steps forward on, is the former Lester Park Golf Course. It simply cannot continue to sit and deteriorate. The Lester Park Golf Course was established in 1934. The land for Lester was acquired through a combination of donations and financial contributions. Thomas Cole, president of the then Oliver Iron Mining Company, originally donated land in 1890 that would become part of the golf course. And then in 1929, prominent community members formed the City Land Company to finance the construction of the course. Those with long memories will remember that in 1985, it was expanded to 27 holes to include the Lake Nine, providing a more challenging and incredibly scenic layout. With 20 of its holes offering views of Lake Superior, the course was listed as one of the 10 most scenic in the state by Explore Minnesota. We recall that the city chose to close the course in 2020 due to financial constraints and the impact of the COVID pandemic. And in 2021, the then City Council unanimously approved a resolution to transfer 37 acres of Lester to the Duluth Economic Development Authority, DEDA, with the goal to build new residential opportunities as well as generate some revenue to support operations. Now, I heard a lot about Lester on the campaign trail. And sure, this is a huge issue, probably the huge issue in the first district, but not only in the first district. I heard from advocates throughout the community who felt there hadn't been enough opportunity to engage with this decision and consider alternative possibilities to permanent closure. I pledged to those folks that they would have another bite at the apple. Or perhaps a better analogy is another swing from the tee box. So last year I created a working group charged with exploring year-round recreational activities, including, but not exclusive to, golf. They were also asked to evaluate nonprofit and alternative management models where the city would retain ownership, but an external partner would manage the day-to-day operations, akin to what we see happen at the Lake Superior Zoo or at Chester Ski Hill, where we own the asset, but somebody else runs it. They were also asked to consider the potential for additional adjacent housing. Now, this was no easy task, and I want to thank members of various groups like the Duluth Area Outdoor Alliance, COGS, DXC, DUFTA, the Superior Hiking Trail, and Friends of Duluth Public Golf, all of whom provided input over the past several months. I also want to thank golf advocates, neighborhood residents, and lakeside area business owners who participated and provided input. And I know he's here tonight, so I especially want to thank Tim Meyer, who took on the thankless job of trying to facilitate some very disparate interests. And Tim, thank you very much. Now, the working group has a deadline of April 1st, which is now just a few days away. And my understanding from Tim is that 4 different possibilities have arisen and been explored, all of which require fairly substantial financial resources. I've also been told that none of these has a consensus of support from the entire group. So, in bringing this working group discussion to a close, I've asked Mr. Meyer to make a presentation to the council sometime soon as a committee of the whole. And then we'll have to take it from there. So while it may be disappointing to those passionate about Lester that there isn't a clear path forward as a result of the working group's efforts, I will still, tonight in this very public forum, say thank you to all of them for their work. Because as we consider next steps, some elements of a future master plan have become very clear because of their discussions. First off, public green space. Secondly, a building that can provide equipment rental, community meeting space, event space, food and beverage in a part of our community that doesn't have a lot of those options. A connection to the adjacent hiking, biking, and ski trails. Housing, and yes, golf. So as I bring my comments tonight towards a conclusion, I do want to take a minute just to highlight 3 other smaller initiatives that I think are also really important in 2025. They are intended to increase communication and resident engagement. First up, a City of Duluth app. Now, by a show of hands, how many people know the Resident Problem Reporter portal exists? Jess, you don't count. You've tried to do this every single time. So, and how to use it. There weren't a lot of hands. Exactly. I've spoken repeatedly about the need for a City of Duluth app. Superior has one that works and works pretty well, and Duluth is overdue. You know, a dedicated mobile app would help streamline communication and services. The city app would better centralize key functions like reporting issues, everything from a pothole to a street light that's out. It would also provide easy access to city news, bill payments, permit applications, and those ever important snow emergency alerts. We haven't had them yet. We will. A city app will also increase transparency, improve responsiveness, and hopefully foster a stronger connection between the city and our residents by offering a more simple, efficient, and convenient way to engage with the city organization. It will replace the resident problem reporter portal. It's also just easier to say. And take advantage of a powerful tool nearly all of us have at our fingertips, our cell phones. It will also be much more effective than calling the city's complaint line, which I don't know for you, Don, but it's also known as the mayor's phone line. So, in 2025, we also plan on conducting the first resident survey since 2019, because nothing's changed since 2019, right? We make our best decisions when they are based on data, and in too many instances, we make decisions based on information that is actually more anecdotal. The resident survey will give the city valuable insight on how our residents think things are going. Not just those who show up to the state of a city address or a city council meeting or a neighborhood meeting or a focus group or a public input session, but also those who are working multiple jobs, who have transportation limitations, who are struggling to raise our youngest Duluthians as single parents. This survey will allow us to gather direct feedback on the quality of life in all 34 of our unique neighborhoods. Feedback on our core city services. Feedback on priorities for future city investments. And for as long as I'm your mayor, we will refresh that information on a regular basis. Because regularly collecting this data will help our 900-employee and nearly $500 million operation make better informed decisions that align with the needs and concerns of our community. I am especially excited about the third initiative I'll talk about here in 2025, designed to better connect with us as a community, and that's the return of a citywide book read. You know, today's politics amplify any mistake or misstep. They seek out controversy. Instead of debating and discussing, we now wage social media wars where we seek to defeat and destroy. If someone is happy, they tell you in person. If they are unhappy, they go online and try to tell the world. This behavior is eroding the civic fabric of our community. We need more opportunities in our big, small town to connect personally and to remember how to treat each other with civility and with respect. We are a stronger community when we find ways to build deeper relationships with our old friends as well as with our new neighbors. And also, when we remind ourselves to think and speak positively about our community and Duluth's future. Duluth can and should be the community to model better behavior. We pride ourselves on our civic engagement. Civic pride is a part of who we are as Duluthians. So accountability to each other for our words and actions, whether they are in person or online, matters. And this is a great opportunity, and a great opportunity for doing that is to leverage a fantastic public resource, our Duluth Public Library. I've had the opportunity to have a brief conversation with both Carla Powers, the manager of our library, and Aaron Krieger, the executive director of the Library Foundation, and I've asked them to join me in thinking about a book that we could all read over the course of the next 12 months. One that would help us focus on countering this growing trend towards harsh, negative, and bullying online behavior. Behavior that discourages rather than encourages the most basic tool in civil society, respectful public discourse. Now, one potential read is Sherry Turkle's Reclaiming Conversation. It focuses on how technology is affecting our ability to communicate meaningfully. She gives tangible suggestions for restoring human connection, suggestions for improving our communication skills, and ideas for fostering accountability in our conversations. I'm certainly open to other suggestions, so if you have them, get them to me or Carla or Aaron, but that sounds like a pretty good place to start. And my goal is at the end of the read, much like back in 2013 when author Rebecca Skloot came to Duluth to discuss the immortal life of Henrietta Lacks, we will invite that author to come in 2025 and join us in a community conversation. It will be an investment not only in ourselves, but also in Duluth. And just perhaps, Duluth can show other communities a better way to engage with each other in this digital age, and also a better way to engage with our democracy. So let me close by acknowledging the elephant in the room. And Councilor Mayo, you spoke to this as well. Your concerns, fears, anxieties, frustration, and confusion about what's happening at the national level. These are valid. I share them. Not just as your mayor, trying to figure out how we continue to do all of the things that we depend on our state and federal partners to do, but as an individual who is also living through this moment in history. We are in a time of the most intense national division I can recall. And it is natural to want to bring those conversations to the local level, where government feels more tangible, is more responsive, and is frankly just easier to access. But it's possible that that's going to feel a little frustrating, because we also live in a federal system where various levels of government have very specific areas of responsibility. And at the local level, our job is streets, utilities, and public safety, libraries, parks. Effective and efficient, and at a tax rate you can both afford and sustain. It's not to solve national political fights. Rather, our responsibility is to provide reliable core city services, those things upon which you both rely and you must depend. And our opportunity is to provide stability. Stability in a historic time of disruption. But let me also say this. Those of you who know me know I spent the better part of 20 years in the classroom as a civics teacher. The highest office in the land is not mayor, it's not governor, and it's not president. It is citizen. Real change doesn't happen from the top down. If you are concerned, become engaged, get informed, take action. If you are frustrated, turn that frustration into something productive. Volunteer. Make a donation. Get involved in ways that make a difference right here in Duluth. Because no matter what happens at the national level, what we build together as a community here in Duluth is what truly shapes our daily lives. And to be honest, with dark clouds on the state and national horizon, we're going to need your help. So thank you again to everyone who took the time to join us tonight, live or online. We're going to close with our Clarence Maddie Award, our Citizen of the Year Award, and our Good Neighbor Award. So stay with us for just a few more minutes. To be quite honest, these individuals deserve way more attention and recognition than I do. Friends, what I love most about Duluth is that we're a big, small town. We're not 1 degree of separation. We're like a 1/4 degree of separation. In 2025, let's use that closeness and that connectedness to our advantage. Let's encourage and support those who choose to serve. Let's call out those who behave like bullies. Let's engage in a community book read that helps us build the skills to do better. Let's decide that in Duluth, not every single thing has to be political. And let's resolve that in 2025, we're not merely going to survive, but because we choose to work together, we're going to thrive as a community. Thank you very much.